Okay, hi guys. We're the special events team. This is Mac. I'm Alex. It's Cree, Nancy, and Sundus, and we'll be talking mostly about how to kind of pull off a special event. And then first off is Cree.
So first we're going to talk about what makes a special event. And so basically a special event is an event outside the normal day-to-day activities of a company or organization. It's consciously planned to achieve certain goals or objectives. Examples would be developing client relationships, rewarding staff, showing appreciation to staff, trying to promote sales or launch different products or services. And then some examples of different special events are as follows: parades and festivals. Oops, I went too fast. 1 second. Parties and celebrations, and the purpose is always to just raise money, celebrate, educate, or demonstrate something. And then some more specific examples, I was trying to rush over here, is the MLK commemoration that happens at the Peace Garden. Another one would be the Taco Fest that Fresno has, and also the Fresno Fair that they do. So that is that, and I'm going to pass it on to Mac.
So I'm talking about planning your special event. So this is basically the basics of before you even start your special event. First of all, you want to develop goals and objectives for your event. So you want to know why you're putting on the event and what you hope to achieve when the event is over. Next, you want to organize a team. So when you organize a team, I would have one event manager to oversee all individuals, and the rest of the individuals would be in charge of specific things such as who's taking care of the volunteers, who's showing them what to do, who are the sponsors, who you got to tell them what their jobs are, and who's taking care of the venue, where's the event's going to be at. Next is set a date. Planning a special event takes a lot of time, so I would plan your date 4 to 6 months ahead. And the one tip I have for that would be not scheduling on holidays, because you want everyone to be free, and a lot of people have plans on holidays. So next would be branding your event. Your brand is basically the personality of the event or the theme. Your brand is going to set you aside from all your other competitors. So a way to set you aside from your competitors would be create a nice name for your event, or a tagline. A tagline would be basically a slogan describing your event. And to take it even further, you can make a nice logo and put it on some t-shirts or some bags or water bottles to hand out. And once the people get those, that they might post it on their social media and bring more attraction to your event to people that aren't even there. Next, you want to create a master plan. Your master plan is basically all aspects of your event written down or in a log. This can be everything from the venue, where it's going to be, the sponsors, what permits you might need to be at the venue, any insurance just in case anything happens. And then sponsors. Sponsors might be the most important thing for your special event. Unless you want to pay for everything out of pocket, I would recommend getting sponsors. Your sponsors can cater your event. They can bring all the food. They can supply prizes if there's a raffle drawing. And the more sponsors you have, the more attraction your event's going to have, because the more people involved, the better it'll be. The last thing would be create a publicity plan. This is basically how are you going to get people to come. What social medias are you going to post it on? Are you going to have a nice canvas saying when it's going to be? And then the following websites it's going to be posted on as well. Establish a budget. Your budget is basically everything that's going to cost money. So this can be the cost of the venue of running, all the way down to how many Pepsi cans are we going to sell at this event. And then I'll pass it on to Alex for the 5 W's.
All right, guys, so I'm going to be going over just 5 essential questions you should be asking yourself whenever it comes to planning an event. These are pretty much there to ensure that each piece of information or each detail is kind of tailored down to meet the same end purpose. So the first one is, why are you hosting this event? This is probably the most important question, because you want to make sure that you're asking yourself, is it to brand, your company? Is it to raise awareness? Is it to increase sales? Or is it simply just to celebrate, let's say, a wedding or a birthday party? And I look at it as an overarching goal of your event. Everything kind of trickles down to the why. This will help you kind of understand the key elements of the event. And I think of it as, if you don't have this question down, it's kind of going to be impossible for you to make accurate judgments on whether or not certain elements pertain to this event. Who is your target audience? That all depends. It all could be like children, business associates, employees. Who do you want there to attend the event? So keep them in mind from step A to step B. You want to make sure that you kind of cater to their needs, simply because every audience has different specific needs, and you just want to make sure that you are catering to their needs, because at the end of the day, they are what makes they make your event come to life. So really make sure that you keep them in mind from point A to point B. When do you want you to host your event? This all kind of trickles down to if it's going to be on a specific day. Let's say, for example, 4th of July, Martin Luther King Day. You really want to make sure that the choice of venue, sometimes I know we have this choice of venue in our minds and we want to stick to it, but sometimes it may be impossible, because the choice of venue is often dictated by the availability or the date. So really make sure that you have that down to a T. And do your research around your area. You definitely want to make sure that your event shines. You don't want, another event taking the spotlight. So look around, look at your local news or anything like that to make sure that your event shines on through. And try to choose a non-conflicting time. Therefore, you let your event shine. What will the event cover? So think of it as, what message do you hope to convey to your audience? Is it for them to have fun? Is it like a team building activity where you want for them to gain certain elements of a company? So ask yourself if the audience's interest is the first thing that comes to mind when throwing this event. Just picture it. If they're not interested, they're not going to come. So you really have to make sure that the event is fully covered solely for the audience's interests. Where will the event be hosted? This is all logistics now, as far as food, parking, let's say catering. You always want to make sure that you have the right location versus the desired location. Sometimes our desired location is what we want, but it may not suit the type of event that you're wanting. Let's say, for example, you have an AV, like a perfect AV equipment in the location, but it doesn't hold up the right capacity amount. So you really have to figure this out and look at all the logistics as far as the square footage, the food, the catering, the parking as well. So take those into consideration. The next is the skills and qualities. Those are definitely important, because if you are not passionate about what you do, it may be a little bit hard for you to kind of create anything around you when it comes to this, because you really have to love what you do. Despite the stress of the job, you really have to make sure that you love what you do. I'm pretty sure we've all heard the saying, if you really love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. So really make sure that you're passionate about something, because I believe genuine passion will help you overcome such roadblocks when you feel all is lost. And that's pretty self-explanatory. You can't teach passion, it comes from within. So being passionate about something is really a skill and quality you should possess when event planning. The next one is outgoing. It's all about understanding people. If anything, I think when event planning, it's all about, or all of the events have one thing in common, which is people. They make the event possible. So if you don't understand people, if you don't have effective communication skills or good listening skills, it may be a little bit difficult for you to kind of pull this event all together, because you really have to know how to understand people, and it's a social profession. You have to learn how to engage with customers, with vendors, with volunteers, and not seem so like a boss. It's more of being social, being approachable. Excellent time management skills. I know that's a difficult one. It's easy to have, but it's kind of difficult to master. So being able to coordinate yourself and others around you, it's really important, because not only are you the boss lady or boss gentleman, you really have to make sure you know how to coordinate yourself effectively, but not as well as like with the volunteers, the vendors. Let's say the vendors get there late on time. Do you have a plan? So really managing everything and understanding and implementing deadlines and timelines and using those effectively, because if not, anything can fall through the cracks, and you want to make sure that you prioritize within that small time frame that you have. So putting things of importance in order is probably the best way to go. The other one is effective problem solving skills. You are looked upon as the most approachable person with all the answers. Even though you don't know an answer, try to find the best solution possible when it comes to this, because you have to think on your toes. You have to think of a great, logical, economical, and all-around best solution for your organization or for your client. Being able to do that is probably the best way. Being organized and good attention to detail. Be on top of your game. Obviously, we've kind of gone over this in several slideshows, that you don't want to have like a mess at your desk. You really want to make sure that you are organized. I know Professor Hayes has mentioned keeping like a box, from the start of the event, or before even planning the event, that you keep everything that comes to mind. Therefore, you're not last minute kind of like scrimmaging, or kind of trying to find duct tape, scissors, glue, trying to find everything. Even a contact list is possibly the best way to go. And implement organization tools. I know for us, luckily, the 21st century, we kind of have a lot of workshops, seminars, documents, templates, free templates, all online, where it's easy for us to access. So being able to kind of implement those within your career is probably the best way to go, because it keeps you organized as well as others. And I know it can be challenging when trying to balance your client and keeping them happy, as well as on top of other to-do lists. So I know there's a lot of templates out there. Can't think off the top of my head, but I know I've seen a lot, especially through Pinterest. So being organized is a good way. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Nancy, and she's going to talk about publicity.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Nancy, and I'll be talking about publicity. I do think having a great publicity plan is the key to having a successful event. So that's really important to keep in mind, and just having an overall great attitude about your event, your staff, and the meaning behind why you're planning your event. A really important thing to keep in mind is having organized marketing plan. That can be everything from having a calendar to having press releases and e-blasts ready to go, just getting it planned and scheduled ahead of time, and just making sure that your team knows about it just as much as you do, so everybody is on board. Part of that amazing marketing plan that you should have ready is your social media strategy, just making sure that you have social media content created ahead of time, scheduled. Sometimes you should have it a little bit ahead of time, not too soon where people will forget about, hey, save the date, not too far ahead of time so they'll forget about it, but just finding the right moment where your audience will be able to remember it, and then just having a lot of content building up to the event. Obviously having live coverage during the event, and then also afterwards. That's really important. Within your marketing plan, everything that you write and create and send out to your target audience and to your sponsors, make sure that you're promoting your cause first. If you're able to craft your message in a way where your audience understands why your event is happening and why it's meaningful, they're really going to appreciate that. They're going to understand it, and that's where they see the value in it. That's where they're going to want to be involved in what you're doing and everything that surrounds your event. They're going to want to donate, participate. They're going to want to show up and just really enjoy everything that's going on. They're going to understand why you're making this happen. Again, try to use storytelling to your advantage. A really important thing about that is that if you're able to craft your message in a personal way, you're able to make these personal connections, not only with the people that are showing up to your event, but to sponsors and to the people that are at home that can't make it to your event. So everything that they see through social media, the coverage that media relations can potentially have, everything that they will read and hear about your event, try to make it personal. Again, it's just going to give you more publicity, and it's also going to give you more of a target audience. It's going to give you more audience that will follow up with you afterwards. Like, they're going to follow up with your event. They're going to want to keep in touch with you. These are just a few social media platforms that you should keep in mind while using your social media strategy. Really try to target Facebook. An important thing to use Facebook for is creating an actual event so people can click interested, going. They could post on the event. So if they have a last minute question like, hey, I'm lost, I can't find the location, you can respond effectively and quickly. Instagram, make sure you're using those Instagram stories. I think that's so essential. I feel like that's a quick way to see the live coverage during an event. Obviously, you can tweet a lot more than you can post on the other two platforms. So don't forget to be active on that and just go hashtag crazy on that. Pinterest is really nice to look up beforehand as far as like planning your event and coming up with unique ideas. Keep this platform in mind for the next slide, which I'm going to talk to you about in just a second. And then don't forget about YouTube. You can make some low budget promotional videos about your event. One of the ways you can do that is obviously if you're a little bit more familiar with multimedia, you could definitely do it yourself. You can get a volunteer to do it, but don't forget we have MCJ students here at Fresno State that you can have as a volunteer and do it for you. So don't forget about our multimedia students because they can definitely just come in handy just as much as any other volunteer. You'd be surprised how people are passionate about video making and how unique they can create it. Now, this is probably my favorite part about event planning is being able to sprinkle your pixie dust everywhere. You got to be so extra when you're doing things. Don't forget about details, details, details. I know we do a lot of planning ahead for your event, but it doesn't hurt to double check everything over again the day of, even towards the event, just making sure that everything is good. Check up with your team, make sure that they know what they're in charge of. And throughout that process, when you're checking everything over, don't forget to be courteous to your audience or to your staff. So let's say during the week of your event it ends up raining on the day. It would be nice just to have like a raincoat station. So when your audience comes into your event, maybe they could just hang their coats there and then they could check out when they're leaving. And that's just a really awesome way to have someone to someone to greet your audience when they're coming in. Like, thank you so much for coming. And then just saying goodbye on the way out. They really appreciate when they get to see someone face to face and just seeing like a really big smile on your way out. They'll appreciate it. Having special activities. So if your event is more geared towards family friendly event, it doesn't hurt to have a kids section, something where maybe the kids can hang out and they're supervised and they're having really fun. And then that way it gives an opportunity for parents to kind of relax, know that their kids are in a safe space and that they don't have to hire a babysitter. So you get to save them a little bit of money too. It doesn't just have to be towards family-friendly ideas. You can get really creative with this, especially with the platform that I mentioned, Pinterest. You can get really creative and just make sure that there's something else on the side that guests can do, especially if your event is something that doesn't need their attention the entire time. This works really well for conferences as well. And my personal favorite is the aesthetics of an event. Just making sure that a room looks so beautiful. One of my favorite things is having a photo booth at your event. The reason I say that is because I love to see when there's a line being made, just waiting to take a photo at the photo booth. It could be a really beautiful backdrop. And again, that's where you can use Pinterest for these type of ideas, and you can use your volunteers to make that kind of backdrop. It's just a really cool thing. You know, people are gonna be waiting to take a picture because they wanna use that picture to put on their Instagram. And that's another great way to get your publicity going, is because when your audience posts these pictures, their circle of friends and business associates will be able to see those pictures and be like, oh my God, I missed out on that. And then everything that they put as far as the caption and the hashtags, and they just promote your event that much more. And don't forget about post-event thank you. So it's always nice to say it in person, but it's even more important for them to read it and to know how much it meant that they showed up to your event and that they actually enjoyed it. This can be done through an email blast, if you do end up having a photo booth, maybe taking that extra step and having a professional photographer to take those pictures, and then you can include those pictures in the email blast as a link. And so you could get a little bit more unique with that, especially if not everybody wants their photo being seen by everybody else. But it could be a way where they get a thank you letter or email blast, and then they have their picture attached to it as well. So you can combine a few things with this, but just making sure that your audience knows how thankful you are is really important. And just add something personal in there. Again, be a storyteller throughout your entire event from start to finish. And I believe now I'll be handing it off to Sindis.
So I'm Sindis Al-Alawi, and today I would be presenting about the challenges that the planners would be facing during their event. And every successful event is the outcome of 3 basic steps, which are planning, assessment, and completion. So here are the top challenge that the planners would be facing is managing the budget, because they would always be willing to deliver more for less, and of course we wouldn't want to do that, and that's the main goal, to do it. And it can be done by setting a clear budget limit for the event and stick with it. Just make sure that you're not going over the limited budget. And it can also be done by tracking your expenses as you go, because you don't want to go over it, and just wanted to make everything is under control, and come up with unique and creative ideas that are budget friendly. And it doesn't mean, like, planning for a special event doesn't mean that you'll have to spend a lot of money, but it's all about being creative and controlling it. And the second challenge is managing the time. So the planners would always be battling the clock, because it's certainty that anything can go wrong, and you don't want to be in that situation. So it can be done by starting the planning process ahead of time, and come up with, create and maintain a planning calendar and live by it. You want to be super organized. You want to know what you're doing, because if you would be wasting time, you would be wasting money too. So you don't want to be in that situation. So satisfying the attendees or the clients, and remember, the main purpose of planning for the event is to satisfy them. So it can be done by creating an interest content, being super organized, knowing what you want to do, know your audience, who are coming, what's the main purpose of the event. So it would be super organized, and you would be satisfying them and provide them with their needs. What would they are expecting from you to do? So evaluation. You would always have to evaluate, no matter what. Even if you planned the event to be in a one-time event, you never know what might be happening in the future. You don't want to regret not evaluating the previous one. So always, always, always evaluate the success of your event, and measure the success again. Objectives, that means that you'll have to evaluate how good was your event, how could you improve it, like in upcoming events. What mistakes do you have to avoid? Just measure everything, and consider the guest evaluation. It's something to consider, and it can be done physically, like, for instance, putting a piece of paper on their table that they're sitting on, and ask them for their feedback. Create a 3-question survey that wouldn't take a lot of effort and time from them to complete. And of course, email them afterwards. Ask them how good was it, and invite them for your upcoming events. Measure online success. In my opinion, it's the most effective way to evaluate the success of your event, because people online would be more honest than on real life and giving feedbacks. So find out what people say about you on their social media channels, their blogs, the website reviews. They would be honest. They would give you the total honest feedbacks. And were you mentioned or tagged on their posts on their social media channels or not? And of course, the number of your followers or subscribers increase or not, because you're expecting the best after the hard work you've been putting on planning. So that's the end of our presentation, and those are the sources. Thank you so much for attending. And any feedbacks? Any questions?